Have you ever had a moment where you caught yourself doing the very thing you promised yourself you'd stop doing? Maybe it's that inner critic showing up right on cue. Or maybe it's reaching for the bag of chips when you said you were going to eat better. Maybe it's snapping at someone you love when you're stressed, even though you've been working on that. You knew better. You wanted to do better, but there you were doing the old thing again. Here's what I want you to know. That moment, that oops, I did it again moment, isn't a sign that you're broken or that you failed. It's actually a sign that something is working. That moment of recognition, that's a tripwire doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Let me explain. As a coach, one of the things I witness most often is people having a breakthrough, a genuine, real moment of awareness around a behavior or a pattern that's been holding them back. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. They get it, they see it, and they want to change it. And then life happens. The insight fades, the old pattern reasserts itself, and the next time I see them, there's a kind of deflated look, like they let themselves down. Like the awareness they worked so hard to cultivate somehow wasn't enough. And here's the thing, it isn't. Awareness alone is never enough. Awareness is the beginning, but what comes after awareness is where the real work lives. And that's what I want to talk about today. Years ago, I was training for the Tour Divide, which is an ultra-distance bike packing race where you strap everything you think you need to survive onto your bike and ride it down the spine of the Rocky Mountains from Canada all the way to Mexico. We're talking about 100 miles a day for weeks, and that's not even considered a competitive pace. And before you ask, yes, it's as crazy as it sounds, and no, I can't fully explain why I wanted to do it, but I've attempted it twice now. Preparing for something like that requires a level of dedication that borders on obsession. I was using a structured training app called Trainer Road, and at the time you could select your training volume, low, medium, or high, based on how many hours per week you wanted to dedicate to the bike. I started with low volume, and it was great. 3 structured workouts per week. I was feeling good, seeing progress, and then a thought crept in. Low is great, maybe medium is greater. So I bumped it up, and for a while, medium was indeed greater. More time on the bike, more fitness gains, more confidence, and then I thought, medium is greater, high must be greatest. Because of course I thought this. So I cranked it up to high volume and my body said in no uncertain terms, nope. The fatigue was heavy, recovery stopped happening. My motivation, which had been through the roof, just cratered. I had crossed a threshold I didn't even know was there until I was already on the other side of it. I had stumbled across a tripwire. And once I recognized what had happened, I had a choice. I could push through and probably dig myself into a hole I couldn't climb out of, or I could back off, rest, recover, and resume at a volume I could actually sustain. I chose the latter, and I course corrected, fine-tuned, and eventually made it to the start line. And that experience taught me something I've been thinking about ever since. Here's the idea, and it comes from a principle articulated by author and story coach Lisa Bloom. We get what we create and what we tolerate. And this is the foundation of what I call tripwires, and it works in 2 directions. Henry Cloud, who has built an entire career around the concept of boundaries, puts it this way: whatever state we find ourselves in, we are either creating it or allowing it to exist. Which means if we want something different, we have to either start creating it deliberately or stop tolerating the things that are working against it. Both. Not one or the other, both. So how do we actually do that? I want to give you a simple 3-part framework. So step 1 is intention. You got to get clear on what it is you want to create and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. This is where you do the honest work of imagining your future self, not in a vague, wishful way, but specifically. Who is this person you're becoming? What does their life look like? How are they living and thinking, relating, working, and taking care of themselves? And then, and here's the part that requires some courage, compare that person to who you are right now and account for the gap. Here are 4 questions that can help you do that. What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? What do I want more of in my life, and what do I want less of? Write those things down, sit with them, and get curious. Okay, step 2 is boundaries. Once you've set your intention and once you know what you're aiming for and what you're walking away from, you set a boundary. A boundary is simply a line that separates acceptable behavior aimed at your desired future from behavior that is no longer serving you. It says, this is what I will create. This is what I will no longer tolerate in myself, in my habits, my relationships, and my inner dialogue, all of it. Think of it like a fence you build around the life you're trying to create. Inside the fence, the new behaviors, the new habits aimed at your desired future. Outside the fence is the old stuff, the stuff that was holding you back. That fence, Those are your tripwires. Okay, now step 3 is awareness. Those tripwires trigger the internal alarms that go off when you've bumped into or stepped over one of your own boundaries. It's not punishment, it's not evidence of failure, it's just information. It's the system working exactly as designed. When you catch yourself engaging in negative self-talk after you've committed to stopping, that's a tripwire. When you reach for the food that doesn't serve you after you've decided to change your nutrition, that's a tripwire. When you snap at someone you love after committing to responding rather than reacting, that's a tripwire. That tripwire triggers an alarm and you notice. It gives you a chance to pause and you can choose old way or new way. That pause, that moment of recognition is everything. It's the space between the old you and the person you're becoming. Now I'd like to address something directly because I know what some of you are probably thinking. Dave, I've tried this before. I set intentions, I make commitments, I do great for a week, and then I fall back into old habits. Why would this time be any different? Well, here's my honest answer. It probably won't be different, at least not at first. American cycling legend Greg LeMond once said, "It never gets easier, you just go faster." He was talking about racing bikes, but I think he was really talking about life. The challenges don't disappear. The old patterns don't evaporate overnight, or even after a week. What changes is your capacity for dealing with them, your speed, your resilience, your ability to recognize a tripwire faster and course correct with less internal shame or drama. You're going to hit those tripwires repeatedly. And this is not only okay, it's necessary. This is how the process works. The goal isn't to never trip a wire. The goal is to notice when you do and to get back on the path. Think about a toddler learning to walk. That kid falls a lot, spectacularly sometimes. But do you know any adults who never learned to walk because they gave up as toddlers? Of course not, because kids are relentless and they have cheerleaders who believe in them even when they're face down on the carpet. As adults, we have to become both. We have to be the toddler who keeps getting up and the loving parent who cheers every single attempt regardless of outcome. Give yourself some grace. This is hard work. It has always been hard work and it will continue to be hard work. But that right there is what makes a well-lived life so deeply satisfying. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Get curious. Pull out a journal and sit with those 4 questions. Imagine your future self, the version of you who has done the work and is living the life you actually want. And let that image inform your answers. Set your intention, draw your boundaries, and when you trip a wire, and you will, I promise, let it be the cue it was always meant to be. Notice it, pause, choose the new way, and keep going. I hope this is helpful. If it is, please share it with someone you care about. Someone who might be ready to start building a few tripwires of their own. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. What tripwires are you setting? What are you creating? And what are you done tolerating? This is the kind of thing I'm writing about in my new book, which will be released this summer. If you'd like to be among the first to know when it's available, join the waitlist at mycoachdave.net.